can affect that. And then also the do's and don'ts of getting good sleep. And towards the end, you're going to notice we're talking a lot more about what we call sleep hygiene and what that means and how you can improve your sleep by looking at your sleep hygiene. And then just some self-care skills to help maintain a good sleep habit, as well as what you can do during the day that's going to improve your sleep. Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if y'all have heard this a million times like I have, as I am also a college student, but there is a recommended amount of sleep for college-age students, and that's anywhere between 8.5 to 9.5 hours per night. And I'm aware that I can't see y'all because we're not in the same room, but I wonder if that is something that any of y'all are actually able to achieve, because really it seems very difficult in the stress of the semester to aim for 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep, especially thinking about finals coming up. I know that during midterms, when you're studying for those exams and you're cramming, it can really feel like important to stay up all night to read as much as you can and review your notes and get the study guide done. But what we've seen in the research is that cramming for finals does not work, because really, if you're ending up staying up all night and don't get any sleep and don't get any chance for your brain to do some of the cognitive memory tasks that are involved during sleep, of taking the information that you're learning and encoding it into your long-term memory, that cramming is really not doing much for you, because it's only staying at the surface level of your memory, really, if you're not able to get that sleep. So I remember when I started undergrad, that was my go-to studying style, and it definitely didn't work. So I ended up learning that sleeping before a test, being able to reset, recharge, and have the energy to start the next day is really what's most helpful and much more important than doing that cramming. So something for y'all to think about. I wonder if that resonates with anyone, or if they have any questions. You're welcome to put it in the chat or jump in and turn on that mic. Up to y'all. Okay.
Yeah, I know for me that was a big part of, procrastination, putting things off. And so we do tend to want to do things later at night, right before, right? I know a lot of your professors have things due at midnight, right? 11:59 is the cutoff for many of assignments. And so we will stay up late. So part of what we're going to talk about is not so much, do I have to be in bed by 10 or 11 or 12? But if I am, how do I then get a good night's sleep? So we're not saying that you have to be in bed by 10 o'clock every night to get this amount of sleep. What we're saying is that for optimum performance, this is what they're recommending. Okay. So some barriers to sleep that we see very often when students come to college is, one, the sleep environment. So noise is a big one, right? If we're in an apartment that's next to a busy street, there's lots of car noise, things like that, that can take a lot to get used to. Part of what I hear from college students is that the dorm walls can be rather thin, and they're not used to that, right? They're used to having their own space, being very quiet at night, and they can hear their roommates up late at night doing things, talking, laughing, hanging out. So noise can be really important for interrupting your sleep. Light is another one. If you have a lot of light streaming into your room, or if like there's a street light that's right outside your window, you don't have good coverings on the windows, that can be disruptive. If you share a room with a roommate who is staying up late and is keeping a light on because they want to study, that can interrupt your sleep. And so thinking about how do you make it dark, right? The temperature of your room is actually really very important. Most of us sleep much better when it's cooler in the room, right? Our bodies need to cool down and kind of hibernate during our sleep. And so cooling down the temperature of the room Again, that can be an issue if you have roommates who are always cold and they want it warmer and you want it cooler. So fans, things like that you can bring into the room can be helpful. And your bed, right? Most people don't think about their bed when they think about sleeping. They just think, oh, it's that place where I lay down. But I know that we use our bed for many things in a dorm room, right? It often becomes the couch, the hangout space, the relaxation space. And so we really want your bed to be about sleeping. And so how do you make that environment more inviting for sleep? If it's covered with laundry or no sheets and everything's kind of bundled up in the corner, or it's covered in books and papers, that's not going to invite you to go to sleep. So thinking about that, how do you prepare your environment? Socially, right? Friends, when we come to college, are very important, interacting. There's lots of activities that go on in the evening. Maybe friends are up doing things, and so we're tempted to stay up later, hanging out, engaging in social media. A lot of times we feel like that's the only time that we can look at our phones, that we can actually scroll through and check our social media because maybe we were busy all day. But we end up staying late, right? Going down that rabbit hole of TikTok or other things that can really catch our attention and keep us up. And gaming. We know there's a lot of gaming that goes on late at night. I have a lot of people who tell me, well, gaming doesn't even really start until midnight, right? And then they're up till 6 in the morning gaming and then trying to expect to perform well during the day. So that can be a barrier. And then academically, right? You may have a really heavy workload where you have lots of assignments, quizzes, projects that you have to work on that can really take up a lot of time. Procrastination actually interferes with that. When we get really anxious and overwhelmed, we start to procrastinate. Our brain doesn't really want to do the things we're supposed to do, so we put it off until the last minute. So again, thinking about studying for a final, right? That cramming, that last minute overnight, that's that procrastination kicking in. And how do we combat that and find a way to actually work through our procrastination to get something done earlier so that we can get that good night's sleep? And then it's not on there, but there are other responsibilities that people have. They may have family responsibilities. You may be working a job, right? Many students work late shifts on campus or off campus. And so this can also interfere with your sleep, but also your schedule. And so that can be an additional workload that you may carry.
Yeah, and I will say also that, late night social media usage kind of is in conjunction with the light piece that you were talking about too, Shelley, of just having a really bright screen this close to your face while you're in bed. It's tricking your brain to think that it's still time to be awake with such a bright light on your face.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So now we're going to talk about some of the symptoms of poor sleep hygiene. You can see this cute little comic we have. I'm really good at sleeping. I could do it with my eyes closed. Makes me kind of laugh. But what you notice is if you have sort of these poor sleep hygiene habits, so staying up really late on your phone, or those kinds of things that we were talking about in the previous slide, you might notice that you're more tired during the day. You might be yawning a lot, having difficulty getting up, snoozing all your alarms because you just want 5 more minutes of sleep. I'm finally getting some good sleep. Let me have 5 more minutes. That could be sort of a cycle that we fall into. And then, once you're finally up, you might experience a lack of motivation because you don't have as much energy as you would if you had had some really good sleep the night before. So starting a task might feel like it would take a lot of energy to do, and you don't really have it. A poor recall of information. So like we were talking about a little bit earlier, when you sleep, your brain is encoding memories and information. And because you have less energy and less time to have encoded those things, it can be harder to recall the information. Additionally, reduced focus. So it's harder to pay attention. You're kind of thinking about, oh, when can I crawl back into bed? Can I take a nap later? It can be really hard to focus on the task at hand. And that's especially important in classes and while you're in school. Increased anxiety and depression. So some of your basic needs are not getting met. And that includes sleep. That can really create more stressors, and you can start to notice some of those symptoms. Irritability, you might be a little grouchy. You can think of like Grumpy from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, something like that. Just feeling a little bit grumpier because you haven't had time to relax and get that rest you need. Difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. This can be because you don't really have a pattern of what sleeping looks like. So having some difficulty knowing, what does it look like when I'm trying to go to sleep? Like what do I do at night that tells me it's time for that? If that's sort of all over the place, it can be really difficult to fall asleep, even though you're really tired. And then you might also not be able to get to that deep REM sleep, and noises will wake you up, or my cat wakes me up. That's something that interrupts my sleep hygiene personally. Anything else to add, Shelly?
Yeah, I would just say all of these, right? We hear these symptoms a lot. People are surprised when we ask, well, how are you sleeping, right? When people come and talk to us about, well, I'm having issues with school, and we're like, where's your sleep? It's because all of these things, symptoms are showing up to tell us there might be some poor sleep going on. So if you're looking at this list, and it's not complete, there are many more symptoms of what would poor sleep look like. If you have some of these, then that's a sign you have issues with sleeping, right? You may have already identified, well, I have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, but you may not have realized that your poor focus, your irritability, that lack of motivation that people are talking about right now are because their schedule is off. So just paying attention to some of those other signs can help you identify, wait a minute, maybe I need to look at my sleep first and get that in track, and then look at, are there other things interfering? Because a lot of times, if we can get your sleep under control, many of these symptoms can calm down and go away.
I haven't noticed any questions in the chat, but feel free to add them if you have any as we go.
Thank you, Maddie, for that reminder. Yeah, so let's talk about how sleep actually affects our brain. So most people don't realize, right? We think we're sleeping, then our whole body is resting, but your brain is not resting while you sleep. It actually is very active, processing all of your feelings and everything you've learned and experienced throughout the day is processing in your brain, and it's trying to organize it as to where does it go, how do we deal with it. When people talk about different dreams they've had, it's being influenced by things they're experiencing, right? So someone who is experiencing a lot of anxiety and stress may have a dream that actually is playing out some of that feeling. That's part of how the brain is organizing that information. So the part of the brain that's affected the most by our sleep is the amygdala, right? That's that small part in the brain that's deep in the center that regulates our bodies and our moods and everything else. So getting a good night's sleep allows the can't talk today, to actually start functioning a little better. It regulates how it works so that you can experience less unnecessary fear, stress, anxiety, and aggression. More emotional stability helps you feel better, but it also allows you to manage the next day's activities, right? So if you have tests and quizzes and homework and other demands in your life the next day, you can wake up a little bit more refreshed and your brain able to function and accept that information. And it doesn't always necessarily show up right away, but it can be a gradual increase of that anxiety and depression that people talk about that is can affect them longer term. And so we want to interrupt that cycle. It's not a fix for anxiety and depression. It doesn't mean that everybody who's experiencing those symptoms is not sleeping. But we do know that it definitely can affect those moods, and want to help get that under control by getting better sleep.
And so, Shelley, we do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Timmy says, I have a friend that wakes up multiple times when they sleep, and they usually say they feel tired after they start their day. Is sleep hygiene also very important for being able to be unconscious for longer amounts of time?
Yeah, so we aren't going into that one a whole lot today, but what that is the sleep cycles, the REM sleep that people talk about, right? The rapid eye movement. REM sleep is when our brain is actually doing that dream state, and we're actually a little higher and closer to being awake during that time. So when people are really stressed and overwhelmed, when they cycle up and down throughout the night through their sleep, they actually come up to the sleep wake spot, and instead of just falling right back to sleep, which is normal, right? We all kind of touch that light sleep and then come back down. They actually will wake up. And once they're awake, then it actually, the stress, the anxiety, and everything else comes flooding back and then can prevent them from either falling back to sleep or delay them, right? They may fall asleep, but then it's still disrupted and not going back into that deep sleep. So some of the skills that we're going to talk about at the end will help regulate some of that sleeping. We can talk about some of the self-care things during the day that will help you get better rest at night. So even though you're getting some sleep, if you're not getting your full sleep cycles, then that's going to be disruptive and you're going to feel fatigued. We actually have a YouTube educational video that's on there as well about sleep and self-care that goes more into the sleep cycles that I encourage you to take a look at.
Thank you for that question.
Yeah. Maddie, do you have anything else about sleep cycles that you want to add?
No, I definitely think you covered it. And I also would say check out that resource and share it with your friend if you're able to, so they can educate themselves about it as well. And Timmy says, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Oops, went too far. Oop, gotta go back.
A little preview for everybody.
There you go.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about what good sleep hygiene actually looks like. And I'm going to break it into 3 categories. So preparing your space, your mind, and your body. So starting with preparing your space, we've already talked about lights in general, but reducing your lights. So if you have a bunch of bright lights in your room, maybe you still kind of want a little bit of light in your room, having something dim, like a really small night light in like a red tone often too can be really helpful because that blue light really wakes you up. So reducing the amount of lights you have, you're able to sleep in total darkness, or maybe get one of those like eye cover things that could be really helpful if you have like really bright security lights outside of your apartment and can't turn them off. Cooling down the temperature. So if you're able to turn on a fan, now that it's starting to get hot, I definitely turned on my AC last night myself, and that was really helpful in helping me get to sleep. Clearing off the bed. So like Shelley mentioned earlier, in college you might be using your bed to study or to fold your laundry or any kind of thing. And really taking the time to clear off your bed so that you just have, you know, your blanket, your pillows, what you need to fall asleep, and sort of transitioning it into your sleep space. Reducing sound or start relaxation sounds like white noise or soft music. So not necessarily things with like lyrics or like, you know, I wouldn't want to play like Little Nas X's new song when I'm trying to fall asleep. I might want to play like some rainforest sounds instead, or some white noise. And really just letting your mind sort of drift off instead of focusing on the sounds around. In terms,
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was sorry, don't mean to interrupt you. I was just going back to the reducing the light. So I know in the dorms, particularly, there's one overhead light within the room, and many students don't think about, I need a small desk light, right? to turn that overhead light off, to be able to have a little light before you get ready for bed can really help out, just soften things for you. And as far as relaxation sounds, white noise, soft music, there's also these story time sleep apps where the storyteller actually talks in a really slow, monotone, soft voice, telling a really boring story that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so that actually can also be very soothing and calming, just to help slow you down as you try to ease back into sleep.
Yeah, and that can be particularly helpful if you find yourself feeling anxious at night, and your head is racing with all the things you need to do the next day, or something like that. It can be really helpful to have something like a white noise or a boring story to help you fall asleep and distract yourself from your thoughts as well. And I guess that kind of transitions us well into preparing your mind. So stopping studying, and that might be something you don't hear a lot on UTD's campus, but you need to stop studying at some point in the night to let yourself relax and recharge. Um, so putting an end to the work piece and transitioning into relaxation sleep mode. Reducing your activity. So, not saving a bunch of tasks for the end of the night. Trying to make sure you have some time to wind down to prepare your mind for that. Stop electronics such as gaming or social media. This is really hard. Shelly already said TikTok is addicting. It's really hard for me to turn that off sometimes when people are so funny and I want to keep watching. But really, I know that my sleep is more important than that. So, taking the time to set a boundary of when you're going to stop engaging with your phone or social media or gaming at night. And then maybe even clearing your mind with a writing exercise. So journaling can be extremely helpful in sort of, putting some of the anxious thoughts that come up at night right onto paper so that they're out of your mind and onto the paper. And I see Allison in the chat saying, how long before going to sleep should you start preparing your mind? And, part of me thinks that this is really individual. I know for myself, I like to do like an hour, but I would say it depends on, a number of factors, like how long it takes you to fall asleep, what you sort of notice about yourself as you're trying to sleep. Like if you are really sensitive to noises and wake up easier, you might need a longer amount of time to transition to bed. What do you think, Shelly?
Yeah, we usually suggest to start with an hour before, right, to give yourself time to kind of work through some of these things. But then for some people, it may need to be longer because it takes longer for their body to actually wind down, like you said, Maddie, and to actually feel calm before bed. And some people just feel like that, I can be ready in 30 minutes, but preparing your room, preparing your mind, it can take more time than 30 minutes to really work on reducing the anxiety that's in your body so you can sleep. So yeah, and we call this sleep hygiene because this is what you should do every night before you go to bed. So you make these things your routine. And when you do that, you're training your brain to actually respond and learn this is how we prepare for sleep so that you can start to produce that melatonin that starts to make us drowsy, that gives us better sleep in the night.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That you're training yourself to notice, like, this is what it looks like when I'm trying to go to sleep. And that's sort of where that bad sleep hygiene piece came in. If you're sort of all over the place and you don't have that set routine, it can be really hard to fall asleep and stay asleep. So thank you for that question, Allison. That's really great. Okay, and then in terms of preparing your body, Shelley sort of touched on this, but you're trying to produce that melatonin, right? And some people like to drink sleepy time tea. It's sort of like a natural like herbal tea blend that can help you fall asleep faster. Some people do take melatonin supplements as well in order to sort of get that going. You can take a warm bath or shower. Sometimes that temperature change can really help just relax your muscles. If you've had a really stressful day and you're running around and needing to release some of that tension, that warm temperature can really help relax yourself. Doing a mindfulness exercise. So there are several resources on YouTube that are very accessible that you can just Google mindfulness exercise, and oftentimes they're guided kind of like mini meditations where you just focus on your breathing. We're going to actually try one a little bit later today. And you focus on your breathing, you focus on your body, and sort of let your thoughts drift away. And that can be really helpful in terms of muscle relaxation and preparing both your body and your mind for bedtime. Any questions about that, or anything to add, Shelley?
No, other than we encourage everybody to do mindfulness exercises to try to handle stress and anxiety on a general day-to-day kind of practice. And so doing this at night, it can be really good to just free yourself of some of the daily stress that we all feel and experience. Okay, the do's and don'ts for sleep. Okay, so this is not a comprehensive list. There are many things that you should be doing, many things you don't want to do. So some of these things are for during the day, right? Things that you need to be doing for your own self-care to help you regulate your sleep and to keep you on track. So we do say exercise, right? Getting out, moving your body. Right now, a lot of us are cooped up at home in front of our computers all day long and sometimes all night if we're doing other things like studying or gaming or even connecting with our friends, right? Even our social time has turned into computer time. So getting out and moving your body, whether that means just doing some exercising within your room or actually stepping outside, taking a walk, getting to the gym. Some people are feeling comfortable with that. But if you're not into full exercise, that's okay. But moving your body a little bit every day actually can really help regulate your sleep. Now, the don't on that is don't exercise right before bed. Doing a heavy workout actually gets your body more energized. It increases that activity level and energy. And so people who try to exercise and then come home and shower and try to go to bed cannot sleep. Their body is not ready. So that's where they have to have this transition between exercising and sleeping, right? That wind down time can be very important. You can do stretches right before sleep, right? Moving your body. That actually is a great way to release some of the tension. Some soft yoga. I know you can do a cardio yoga. I know you can do a big muscle workout kind of yoga. We're talking more about the relaxation yoga if you're going to do it closer to bedtime. But doing any kind of yoga helps with our breathing and our general functioning throughout our body. And that can be very positive. Um, get good sunlight, right? We're always saying put on your sunscreen, cover up, don't go out in the sun, but we actually do need sunlight. Sunlight provides vitamin D. It also helps regulate our sleep cycle because our natural circadian rhythm within our body, that's what tells us when to be awake and when to be asleep, functions on light. When it's daylight, our body is geared to be awake. When it starts to get dark, our body is geared to start slowing down and get ready for sleep. But when we stay inside all the time, we're forgetting what's day and what's night. And so our bodies need exposure to that sunlight. So I often say, especially for those who don't really want to do heavy exercise, just step outside for 10 minutes a day, right? Get some of that sunshine that you can, even if it's a little overcast, that cloud will still allow some sun to get in. Step outside, get some fresh air for 10 minutes, and then go back in and continue your activities. Clear your worries, right? Deal with what worries you during the day so that you don't have to deal with that during the sleep, right? Get it out, figure out what you need, what works for you, whether it's counseling, whether it's talking to a friend, writing it out, maybe problem solving for the day, whatever it is that you need to do to help organize your worries so that you cannot focus on them at night. Don't. So we have caffeine, cannabis, and alcohol. When I say don't, that doesn't mean no, you can't do any of those things. But you don't do any of those things right before bed. Caffeine is a stimulant, obviously going to keep us awake. If we're trying to go to sleep, that can interfere. So if you're using coffee or sodas, things like that, or even the caffeine supplements to keep you energized during the day, that's going to interfere with your sleep. So make sure that you're cutting that off. A doctor will tell you cut your caffeine off by noon, but I would say as a college student, you're young, I would probably cut it off by evening and give yourself at least 4 hours before bed without any caffeine. Cannabis and alcohol, I find many students think, oh, well, that helps make me drowsy. It calms me down, it makes me tired. And yes, it can, but it's also a stimulant in a different way, right? Cannabis can interfere with our sleep cycles as far as getting good sleep. And so that's something that you want to kind of look at. How do I not do that right before bed? Alcohol actually does interrupt our sleep. It makes us drowsy, but it prevents us from going into a deep sleep where we can actually get that really good, solid working sleep that our brain needs. It keeps us on that surface sleep where we wake up a lot during the night. And so alcohol before bed does not help you sleep. If you're having a problem going to sleep, hopefully the sleep hygiene can help you interrupt that and create a better cycle. Don't nap during the day, right? Many students, they're tired. They're like, oh, the bed's right there. I can lay down and take a nap. If you're trying to improve your sleep at night, you've got to stay awake during the day. And so trying to avoid that actually will help increase your sleeping at night. If you're finding that you're sleeping at night and you're napping during the day, then there may be something else going on that you want to talk to a doctor about because we shouldn't need that sleep. But if you're not getting enough sleep at night, that's usually a sign that we want to nap. And a lot of students don't like this, but don't clock watch. Clock watching is when you actually want to, you wake up and you look at the clock and go, oh, it's, 2 o'clock in the morning. You go to sleep. You wake up, oh, it's 2:20. You go to sleep, oh, it's 3 o'clock, right? That actually is waking you up and stimulating you every time you look at the clock. So you want to stop. Just if you wake up at night, acknowledge, oh, I'm awake. I need to calm down. I need to relax my body, ease back into sleep. You might need to do a mindfulness exercise to help you to ease back into sleep if you're having a problem. But avoid looking at the clock because one, it makes you more anxious, but it does stimulate you. And then avoid oversleeping on the weekends. Many people think, oh, I can go without sleep during the week because I can catch up on the weekends. You actually don't really catch up on your sleep. You might feel like you're a little more functioning after you've had extra sleep during the weekend. But if you go back into the week and you reduce your sleep again, the effects are still there. So oversleeping on weekends does not make enough difference for you to actually be functioning at your top peak performance. That's a lot. Any questions about any of that? And there are other things to think about of what to do and don't do for the day, but these are a good start to give you some guidelines for some daily functioning self-care.
Okay, so we're going to shift into a mindfulness exercise really quick. I'm going to walk y'all through sort of a body awareness deep breathing exercise. So I can't see any of y'all's faces, but if you are comfortable, either sitting up or lying down, with your back, neck, and spine fully supported. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, I'm just going to shift into this exercise. So Allow yourself to be comfortable, knowing that you will not be interrupted for the next little while. Begin by gently closing your eyes, and now begin to bring your awareness to your breath, the direct experience of your breath, however it is, however it changes. Allow yourself to softly focus your awareness on the breath that is rising right now, the in-breath and the out-breath, the rising and the falling. If you can, try to follow one full cycle of the breath from the beginning of the in-breath and through its entirety, the beginning of the out-breath through its entirety. Allow yourself the time and the space to be in direct contact with the breath throughout one cycle. So in and then out. Now, starting at the crown of your head, gently guide your focus down your entire body, noticing and then noting any and all sensations. Notice any tension, tightness, and any pressure. Notice any sensations of warmth, coolness, pain, areas of numbness, feelings of softness or pleasure and relaxation. Just note what is. Continue to scan, noticing any other identifiable sensations. Allow yourself to label them, and then gently bring your attention back to the direct experience of the sensation itself. Allow yourself to softly focus your awareness on the breath that is arising right now, the in-breath and the out-breath, the rising and the falling. When you've completed the journey, bring your attention back to the room. And again, this is recorded, so you can pull this part up anytime when you're drifting off to sleep, trying to, or even a moment during the day when you need mindfulness to just breathe and relax.
Great, thank you, Maddie. Hopefully that relaxed everybody and feels calming. So that's one small example of how we do mindfulness. There are so many other examples out there that are specifically for sleeping. And just taking a moment to do that can really help you relax and get into the mood of falling asleep. So definitely encourage you to look some of that up. And you can always reach out to us for more resources on mindfulness as well, if you're struggling with finding ones that fit for you. So we're at the end of talking about sleep and self-care. There's so much more information that we could offer, but I wanted to see here if there's any other questions, things that we didn't answer, or more explanation or examples specific that would help you as you go on your sleep journey.
See someone typing in the chat. You're also, oh, here's the question. How could one combat oversleeping?
Yeah, so that's the other thing, is that when you're tired, you really want to sleep. The best thing is to really focus on setting a time limit, right? That if it's 8.5 to 9 hours is a long time. And if you can set an alarm to get yourself up at the same time, about the same time every day, your body will actually regulate to that. So think about how you can identify what is your normal sleep cycle. When do you really start to feel drowsy, and can you go to bed at that time? And then when your body will actually wake you up. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't people who are oversleeping because of other issues, right? So you want to make sure, am I depressed? Am I avoiding, right? People will oversleep to avoid stress, anxiety. If they're more depressed, they will sleep longer. So if you're getting that sleep and you're still oversleeping your alarms, just not able to get yourself up and going, then you need to be talking to somebody to find out what else could that be. But the best suggestion is to just set a regular time for you to go to sleep every night and a regular time to wake up, and you will do that. But yeah, it's normal for us to want to kind of every now and then just sleep in a little longer and hang out in the bed. But that's something that you have to judge. Am I going to pay for that? Will that keep me awake at night if I'm sleeping in longer? The other thing that I learned was that, and I don't know, Maddie, if you've learned this, that if you are repeatedly going through the sleep function on your alarm, right? Hitting that sleep and snooze repeatedly, then you're not getting enough sleep. That if you can actually move your time up to a regular time to wake up and skip all the snoozing, then you'll actually get better sleep. That every time that snooze alarm goes off, it's disrupting you getting good sleep. And if you're not ready to wake up, that's a sign. You need to set that alarm later or go to bed earlier and not use the snooze button.
I think those are all great points. And I'm just curious if anyone else has any questions. If anyone wants to unmute, you're always welcome to do that as well. I find myself thinking like this, again, can be really hard to start committing to at the end of the semester when things are starting to get, really busy. But in the long run, it will help you successfully pass your classes and navigate finals week. So hopefully these are some things y'all can start now.
Yeah, and one last thing that we didn't talk about was if your body is used to going to sleep late, how do you get an earlier bedtime? If you're used to going to bed at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you will not get in bed and go to sleep at 12, doing your sleep hygiene. You have to back it up gradually. So if you're going to bed at 5, back it up to 3 to 4:30 or 4 and see if you can get yourself to go to sleep. And then when you're doing that, back it up to 3:30, right? Keep moving it back gradually until you hit that time that you really want to go to sleep so that you can get your full sleep time. And that's definitely something that many college students have to battle is, I'm already in that habit. How do I improve it? The other thing is start small. Start with just one thing we taught you today and put that in your sleep schedule. And then when you feel comfortable, add a second thing until you feel like you've reached your hygiene routine that works for you. Trying to do everything at once can be overwhelming and can set you up for failure. So go slow and know that it's not going to correct itself overnight. It takes time and be patient. But keep at it and it will improve.
We have another question. I regularly get 8